All right, Cousin Tone. Our next guest is a content machine. This man's fervor for the hobby is unmatched as he seems to be dropping a YouTube episode every hour on the hour about his baseball card, autograph, and memorabilia addiction. Obviously, I'm joking, but when it comes to passion, you'd be hard pressed to find someone with more than our next guest, Mr. Michael Moynihan, aka Baseball Collector Mike. Welcome, Mike, to the Cousins Collectibles podcast. How you doing, brother?
I'm good, Oz. Thanks for having me, man.
Of course, man. Of course. Listen, man. Appreciate you coming on board, Mike. Now, you and I, we first met on Hobby Hotline last week, and I must say it was definitely one of my favorite episodes to do on there, due to the fact that you're very easy to talk to. You're what you call in the industry a pro's pro. Now, for our audience out there that's not familiar with you, go ahead and give us your backstory. How did you become the hobby content king, brother? Tell us.
Oh, well, I think you're heaping too much praise, but
No, 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 not at all.
uh, man, I've been a collector since 1981, and unlike a lot of people, I never took a break. I certainly had periods in my life where I was not collecting as much due to financial restraints. Right, we're all young and broke, right? And I don't know what defines a collector. First of all, would be a great question because if you have cards, just because you're not buying new cards, does that make you not a collector? No, you still have them, right? So these people that say they took a break or whatever, did you really? You still had the cards, you
Yeah.
just weren't buying. So, but I always was looking for card shows and card shops. Uh, Budget was, like everybody, small in those days, and getting married and having kids and all that. My poor daughter, her closet in our old house was all cards. Like she didn't have any room to put any. Luckily, she was a baby; she didn't care. But
Yeah, yeah.
still, that's how it was. Then we finally moved to a house where I could have a card room, and uh, life's very good now. But and then probably 08, 09, I started watching content, and I probably watched for a couple of years and did a video here and there. And probably in 20, I think it was 2013 ish, I did my first video. It was a card room tour. My card room looked very different because I'm like, man, these guys are putting, this is all cool. So I have some cool stuff. Maybe I should do it. And this was pre iPhones having really great phone or cameras and trying to connect the dots and post to YouTube. And man, it was like, for an old man like me, difficult, but trudged through that, period. Don't go watch my old videos. You'll just be like, dude, this guy sucks. And, just kept doing it, started meeting people in the hobby, started making connections. And one thing great about any content creation, whether it's podcast or YouTube or whatever, is you get to meet people you would never meet otherwise. And none of us really have people, next door to us that collect cards, or even people within that we know really well. And so this allowed me to create a network of friends that I owe it all to content creation. And so I'm very blessed in that regard, and grateful to be a part of this community, and love the hobby. So it's a great way to share that.
Yeah. And that's so true. Like you said, it's rare that you find somebody, a next door neighbor that just happens to collect. I mean, it's possible. I'm pretty sure there's people out there, but I was very fortunate to have my cousin Tony here, who I had to twist his arm to start collecting with me. But once he did and jumped on board, obviously it spawned Cousins Collectibles, and we're having a great time doing that. So I can totally understand. So Tone, go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's one of the few times where, let's be honest, Cowboys and Eagles fans can kind of find some common ground here.
Amen to that. Amen
Absolutely.
to that. Every time I look behind Cousins'
I see. I
shoulder,
see your face turn.
I want to throw up, but it's okay. I ate a light dinner knowing I was going to be looking at that the whole episode. So I'm like, I don't want to, puke on air. That would suck.
Yeah, it's
Sorry
awesome.
about
I
that, man.
actually told Oz before I get to, I was like, you know what? I was like, I don't even doesn't bother me that Mike's a Cowboys fan because he's actually from Texas. Like that's cool, bro. You're repping where you're from. Like
Yeah.
it's just the goofballs around this
No,
area
no,
that
no.
we.
Call them what they are, cockroaches.
There you
That's
go.
what we refer to them in Philly,
I was trying
cockroaches.
to be nice, but okay.
I admit I never understand that. Like how you can be a fan, like a guy that lives in Florida and he's a 49ers fan, let's say. You're like, how did that happen?
Yeah,
Now, you can get, let's say you're originally were born there and you've just
right.
moved, or your family is big, fans of
Right.
a team that where you don't live because, dad and grandpa used to go to games.
Sure.
Packers games and we live in Florida. Okay. But
Yeah.
the ones that just like their uniforms or something, you're like,
Nah, see with the cow. See what
Yeah,
makes the
that's
Cowboys
yeah.
fans the most despicable fans. Not you, but the ones around here is their front runners. So you know what I mean. In the '90s when you guys were killing it and winning all those Super Bowls, you know, with Emmett and Troy, you know, Michael Irvin and those cats. They jumped on board this bandwagon, and then not to mention all the previous years of being quote unquote America's team. So they just thought it was, you know, because usually it works. You're a Cowboys fan, then you're a Lakers fan, and you know what
It's
else? Are
usually
you?
Cowboy. It's usually
Yankees.
Cowboys,
And
Bulls,
Yankees.
and Yankees. Yeah,
Yeah.
typically guys our age. But yeah, I agree 1,000%. If you're a transplant from somewhere else, I totally get it. But just to be, I like their uniform or they start winning, and here we go. It just, blech.
And Oz, you don't need to put quotes around America's team. It's just true. You
I don't know about that one, man. I need receipts on that.
right.
That's awesome. But so Mike, like I mentioned before, I mean, you have multiple shows. So how do you, before we get into your PC and collecting and all that stuff, just give us a quick day in the life of Mike, the video producer, because it's not it's a little unique.
Yeah, I try to front load my week. And so I will usually record my podcast episode Sunday or Monday. I will shoot Hobby Think Tank if I'm on it that week, Monday or Sunday. And then baseball collector videos, I will, they're usually mail days or showing off part of a PC or whatever.
Mhm.
And those just kind of happen easy, but they're simple. They're usually 10, 15-minute videos. So it takes me literally a total of 20 minutes maybe to do that video. So that's not a huge if those come throughout the
Mhm.
week. But my longer form shows that I do, I try to front load my week for that and then just release them later in the week. Chasing cardboard is a whole different animal because we have to travel usually for that.
Yeah.
And so that's usually, we find about a collection. We try to find other collections around the same area so that we can kind of kill multiple birds with one stone. And
Mhm.
then we plan travel and okay, when can we all go? Because it's me and Ty and then our filmer, producer, camera guy, Matt. So we all have to be on the same page, and the person whose collection we're going to look at needs to be available. So there's a lot of coordination and logistics that go into that, but that's not often. That's every couple months, and we'll shoot usually 3 or 4 episodes worth of stuff in one location and then just release those every couple of weeks. So
I gotcha. So tell us a little bit more about the chasing cardboard. I told Oz I kind of, it's like a American Pickers type style or something like that with cards, but maybe some of the craziest things you've seen or come across, animals that have been hiding in boxes, anything wild like that.
yeah, we had dead raccoon on a Mickey Mantle rookie. No, I'm just kidding. No, it's pretty amazing to see. You think, oh, we're in 2023. Surely there's not these things out there anymore.
Mhm.
And the reality is there are a ton of them still. It's been a lot of fun because I'm not normally a seller of cards or I want to buy cards, and so the idea of us going with the idea that we have to either consign or buy these collections to then resell to kind of pay for the show, pay for everything that we're doing. And Matt and Ty use it as their income, and they're in cards pretty much full time. So, it's different for me. I'm kind of the vintage expert is what my designated role is. I'm the Frank to his Mike on it.
I gotcha.
And it really is. I mean, we thought, man, we could do this. We totally copied American Pickers. We're not ashamed to say it because the format is simple. You go in, you're a subject matter expert, ideally on the cards you're looking at. We can provide some color and maybe some history. And really the show's designed for people that aren't even into cards. Like I like American Pickers and I don't like necessarily I don't collect motorcycles. Yeah. I like the show. I like hearing the history. I like all of that stuff I like the 2 guys that are in the show. So you got to like the personalities, and Ty and I fit together really well. We get along really well. We think different enough, not to be adversarial, but to be complementary of one another. And he knows things about, he's a big basketball and football guy. I'm baseball. So, and I know enough about baseball or the other sports to be dangerous. He knows enough about the baseball to be dangerous. And so we complement each other well. And yeah, the episode where we went to Tulsa, Oklahoma, and there literally a gentleman had passed away, and he had not one, but two houses full of cards. One was in Missouri and one was in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And so Ty did a blind bid, literally like, I'm going to put in a bid and I'm not going to win it probably, but because he bid like 80, we tell it on the show, it's like $8,700. He won. And we're like, we have to go to Tulsa like tomorrow. Like this was all, done in a way that you got to come clean this house out. And House of Cards, sure, right. No, literally, if you watch the episode, it's every room, floor to ceiling. The guy didn't even have a bed. Everything was just covered. We're just 5,000 count boxes, 3,000 count boxes, unopened sets everywhere. Mainly from not a ton of vintage, a lot of 2000 stuff, but like we found, I don't know, 50 Kevin Durant rookies, and just Kershaw and Scherzer and just all these just amazing, just lots of cards, like tons of the same stuff. We ended up leaving 1.5 million cards because we literally couldn't carry anymore. We're just like, we had to rent a 32-foot U-Haul to take it all. And we brought it all back here to Dallas and, put it in storage sheds and had 2 storage containers full. And ultimately we've sold all that finally. Wow. And what's great is I get to pick through it first, and kind of, okay, I want this,
Yeah.
And that's pretty great. And,
how long was that process, Mike, going through all those cards?
Well, it took us months, honestly. I mean, you got to think about it. You go through a box and you can kind of tell quickly in a box what it is, right?
Yeah.
Okay, this is all this. Are there any key cards we need to find in that set, or this 5,000 count box is all, 98 hoops. Well, let's find the Jordans and the, whatever. So it wasn't that bad, but there was a lot of it, honestly, we never even went through because you just can't. There's just not enough time in the day. And that was a lot of, like, Ty flew back down here just for a weekend, and they literally spent the whole weekend going through cards. I did it once or twice, but yeah, it's just, and that's the thing. If you're buying collections all the time, you have to have a great system to get through them, because you're about to go see we're about to go get another one. We got to get rid of these first, and kind of keep that train moving down the tracks, or else you're just going to get overwhelmed and we'll end up with a house of cards. Yeah. That is not something we're trying to do with this show.
Yeah. And I know that there's been talk about on Netflix about a show about the hobby. What you guys are doing, I think I find a little bit more entertaining. Like, I know, the show they're talking about, maybe it'll be like wild stuff, super crazy expensive things, but I can't relate to that stuff. Like, yeah, it's cool to see, I don't know, Muhammad Ali's, I don't know, golden toothbrush, whatever. Right. Yeah, that's cool, but I can't. But I can relate to at least, hey, these guys are treasure hunting, and maybe I could one day buy a storage unit for a couple bucks, and who knows what I can find. So
yeah, because we're not out there spending, crazy money. I mean, there are times we spent some decent money, but the reality is it's mostly, I don't want to say even smaller end, but stuff that most people, if they found it, they would beg, borrow, and steal to get the money to be able to take advantage of that opportunity. And now we just have collections coming to us. Now the show has grown so much that we get emails, many a week going, hey, I've got some stuff in, Vicksburg, Mississippi or something. And you're like, okay. So then we have to vet those out and start planning a trip around them. Mm-hmm. Can they wait? Are they in a hurry? If they're in a hurry, like, hey, we're not in a hurry. So if you want to be on the show, you got to wait, kind of thing, till we're all available. And so that's interesting. I don't have to do, the good part is I just show up and get to make deals. West Virginia was awesome, where we went and bought this guy's collection who had just crazy stuff. So, holding 52 Manals and holding, T206 amazing cards. And so it's stuff that it's just a unique hobby experience that I'm proud to be a part of.
Gotcha. And whose job is it to break the bad news about the 89, 88 Don Russ stuff not being
So usually we get to do that they'll send us, I got all these old cards, and it's all junk wax or whatever. And it's like, yeah, sorry, you don't really have anything that's worth us flying and spending, because
Yeah.
each trip for us between airfares and hotels, and you're talking a couple $1,000s. It's not like we can just, sure, we'll just come check out your 89 Donruss. Thank you very much. No, we haven't had that problem, honestly, because we do a good job, beforehand vetting it out.
Okay. Gotcha. And one more from me. Back to kind of the content stuff. You had put out a video where you said talking about what sports card videos are worth watching and tips and tricks of either the title or things that you look for when you're watching sports cards videos. What are some of the things that you are looking for, A and B, just kind of, or the stuff that you should be putting in your titles or your content, things like that?
For me, there's three things that make content worth watching, and that's either it's educational, right? It's entertaining, or it's inspirational. And so ideally, each piece of content does all those things, but the reality is most don't. Most fall short. I'm not a guy that's going to sit there and watch a breaker. I have very little, if zero, interest in that. I want to see passion, right? And it can be cards I don't even collect myself. If you collect football and you show passion and you're knowledgeable and you're sharing that knowledge, I'm going to be interested, because I'm always learning. Being in the hobby 42 years, I'm still learning stuff every single day. And I enjoy that part of it. I'm glad I can't know it all. I want to keep learning. And the entertaining part is hard because it's not natural for everybody. There's a lot of people that get on YouTube and probably shouldn't be on YouTube, but if you just be yourself, I just try to just be yourself, man. So there's gonna be people that like you, people that don't like you. There's plenty of people that don't like me, and they're not afraid to tell me either. So that's fine, different strokes, right? So
Yeah.
just be yourself, be entertaining, be educational, and try to inspire. I can't tell you how many people have said, "Man, I saw this on your channel, and I bought one." Pick a set, pick a card, pick a thing, and then they start doing it and they start loving it. And they're like, man, all because of you, because you had so much passion about it. And I felt that and I wanted to share in that, So if only one person told me that, it'd be worth doing it. It'd be like, okay, that makes sense. There's the most famous dog on YouTube over there.
Yeah, I saw him make a
Seen him
cameo
creeping.
over there. Yeah, it's funny. And before I kick it to Oz, I know we were just texting back and forth today, and I actually said to him, I said, "I'll never figure this hobby out." He goes, "That's what makes it great."
Yes,
So
it's fantastic. If
Yeah.
you know it all, you're a liar. Like if you say it, you're just lying. There's no, because it's impossible, right? There's too much
Yeah,
stuff out
yeah.
there.
When you think you know something, it just totally flips on its head, and it's the complete opposite 5 minutes later.
Right.
Now, speaking about that, as far as the hobby is concerned, there's certain resources that we can use as collectors to learn about sports cards. And you recently had, did a show on, hobby resources. Talk about that.
Well, I think, especially with technology the way it is today, you don't have an excuse of why you don't know something. If there's something you want to learn about, a set you want to learn about, there's forums like Blowout or Net54, especially on the vintage side. There's so many knowledgeable people on forums. There can be some trolls out there too, no doubt. But the reality is, if you're sincere and wanting to know, you can go find the information. There's, again, YouTube. If you just, especially now, so many people are doing content creation. You can probably find a video about it, and that's always hard for me because people will ask me, "Hey, can you do a video about this?" I'm like, "I did it like 3 years ago," but nobody goes back and watches archival stuff. It's kind of an enigma to me why people don't do that, but nothing's not been done, I guess is my point. You're not going to have an original idea. As much as smart and savvy as you content creators out there might think you are, sorry, it's probably been done by somebody. Yeah. You may be able to do it better or put your own spin on it, but the reality is there's a lot of content out there. And if you just search those types of resources, believe it or not, books, people, we think we're in this digital age and that's all well and good, but a book like let's grab one, like the Bubblegum Card War. If you want to learn about the great Bowman and Topps sets from 48 to 55 and why Bowman was so prolific. And then Topps came in, swooped in, and this tells the whole story. It's a great read and it's simple, easy to read. Go read, people. Go read.
Yeah, I picked that up. That's the first book I've actually read in 30 years.
What'd you think?
I loved it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's where, like, so when I just felt like if I'm going to be in this, I probably should at least, figure out where the heck we've come from.
Yeah.
Okay. And that book is, like I said, super easy read. Trust me, because I fall asleep reading. Like I can't, it just doesn't work, man. If I want to go to sleep, I just crack open a book and it's a wrap. So,
yeah. So there's just ask, people I think are afraid to look uninformed about a topic. And so they're usually afraid. That's usually dudes because we have egos and we think we know it. We should know all this stuff. And the reality is, how do you know until you ask? And so I try to encourage people, man, ask me any question. I'm not going to, the only dumb question is one you don't ask. Right. So people asking me stuff all the time. And I always, it's funny. I go, man, people should know this. And I'm like, they're like, no, I've been in the hobby 3 months. I don't know. And okay, fair enough. So ask questions. Don't be afraid to make comments on videos and ask people questions. That's everybody in the hobby is so cool about trying to help other collectors increase their knowledge.
Yeah.
It's a common theme, no doubt.
So, piggybacking off of that, you're talking about resources. The Golden Age of Cardboard, that's another podcast that you do. Talk about that one. That's more vintage. Like, talk about like the history of all that. So what's that all about?
Yeah, it is. It's a purely vintage baseball podcast. I get people asking me, oh, do vintage football? No, I'm going to stay in my lane. That's another thing. Know what you do and do it well, right? Don't try to be something you're not. If you don't know it, don't try to fake it. So that started about 2.5 years ago. Well over 100 episodes now. I'm currently going through all the Bowman sets year by year and kind of deep diving into those sets because I think they're not misunderstood, but maybe not as prominent in people's minds as the top sets from the 50s. And I think they're great. So I want to kind of bring light to those Bowman sets and for people to wake up to them a little bit. It's just creating more competition for me, but that's all right. No.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just doing vintage stuff. I usually try to have guests on because I can bring on guys that if I want to talk about a certain set or a certain era or team or player, there's guys that have, given their whole hobby life to these things and they can bring even more knowledge. I learned something pretty much every episode from somebody that I have on, and they're mostly my friends. So that makes it way easy. Every time we're like, oh my gosh, that was the fastest hour ever. We could do this for 2 more hours and still barely scratch the surface. So it's just fun. If you're not having fun with your content, why are you doing it? And sometimes it can be a grind a little bit, but the reality is once I do it, once I get into it, it's so easy and just a blast. So that's the Golden Age of Cardboard podcast for you.
That's awesome, Mike. And really, that's honestly why Tony and I started doing this. We don't know much about cards. We collected as kids, had a little break, but I wasn't really collecting cards, but I was collecting a whole bunch of other stuff. And then we got back into it like right around the pandemic time. But it was like, dude, we're listening to content and we got pretty decent personalities. Maybe we can get on here and like bring some knowledge, not necessarily from ourselves, but get guests on here that have been doing this a long time, like yourself, Mike, that can actually drop that knowledge and we can learn as well as the audience. So it's pretty cool doing this podcast. And dude, it's like every time I get on Hobby Hotline, that was another thing, just broadening your horizons, getting out there. Cousin John, we call him Cousin John Newman. He asked us to come on board. You're familiar with John. He brought you on board as well. And it's like, you guys came up with the Hobby Hotline, and every time I go on there and the people, they're great. And you start listening to these conversations, especially if you're on there with, Dr. Beckett or somebody like that, and you just hear all this knowledge being dropped. And it's like, man, how could you not love that and just start, acquiring that knowledge that'll help you as a collector?
Just be a sponge, man.
Yeah.
Just be a sponge, right?
Yeah. That's exactly what I did with your vintage podcast. When I decided to make Clemente the focus of my PC, I'm like, man, I got to find something that tells me about these older cards, and I'll pat myself on the back. When I found it, I went all the way down to episode 1. So because I was like, I just want to get my feet wet and see what the heck this stuff is all about. Because there's,
Yeah.
with any cards, I mean, to me, there's always a big learning curve. I mean, as you get through modern, then you got all kinds of sets and parallels and stuff like that. But yeah,
It's actually easier to do that with podcast, I think, to kind of
Yeah.
start from the beginning, because
Yeah.
usually there's not, I mean, I have on Baseball Collector, I have almost 1,000 videos. So if you were going to start at the beginning, you'd be there till rapture, watching videos. So just, it's easier to do it with podcast. And a lot of people do that with my podcast because it is kind of a progression through the vintage world.
Yep.
And I get that a lot. Like, man, I've been binging this for, they'll shoot me a message on Instagram or something. And like, man, I've been binging. I love it. This or that. And it's humbling, and it makes you just it drives you to keep going,
Yeah. And you get to hear your dad deliver his
every
line, man.
week, every week. Yeah. Shallow into the pool.
Yeah.
So when we did that, when we shot that,
Yeah.
I had my dad over here, and he was a great sport about it. I said, hey, I'm very self-deprecating. I have no problem.
Yeah.
Like, I had zero problem making fun of myself. So I said, hey, he did them all straight. Like, I wrote the intro, and he did them all pretty straight. And I said, hey, add something in, like, and from the shallow into the gene pool. And it sounded so good. And I laughed the first time I heard it. I had to cut that out of the audio because I was laughing in the background when he actually said it, even though I just told him to say it, but it sounded so funny coming out of his mouth. And I just kept that in there. I'm like, I thought about changing it, but I think people would be like, dude, don't change it. Why would you change it?
No, definitely not me. Because it's like the way he delivers the line. It's just, and like the introduction to your show, it's like a vintage intro. So
yeah,
like I said, if anybody hasn't listened to it, check it out. Yeah, it just goes right with it, man. The way he just delivers the line, it's awesome. So definitely do not change that.
But how dope is that, having your dad and doing a podcast with him?
Well, it's my dad's fault that I'm in the hobby at all, because I grew up here in Texas, and my dad was a cameraman for sports, Rangers, Cowboys, the Stars when they came here, the Mavericks. I went to so many games as a kid because I'd tag along, and I'd be what's called a runner, or I'd pull cable, hold the cable behind. This was back before wireless cameras and all that. So I'd keep, and like at basketball games, Mavericks games, I'd sit under the basket and hold the microphone that got the squeaking, when they would, that was my job as a kid. So I loved sports, and the whole sport, what came first, the chicken or the egg? Sports cards, or being a fan of sports? And I think it has to be symbiotic. You have to have both to really love this hobby, because if you're in it only for the money, it's going to disappoint you. If you're, if you got to love the sport first, and I loved baseball first, cards were just a perfect complement to loving the sport and then learning the history of the game. I've always been fascinated with the history of baseball. I couldn't get enough books as a kid of reading about the history of the game and the stories of Ruth and Cobb and Mantle and all these guys that I never saw play. It's just, wow, these amazing stories. And my dad took me to so many games and allowed me to experience so many things that were just made a special childhood. And he's a pretty great dad also. And he collects tools, right? So he's a big woodworker, custom stuff. Like, we built my case back here. We call it the Beast. And so we built that for my PSA card collection. And I did that with him, over 3 or 4 weekends. It took us to build that, custom built just for PSA slabs, and just stuff like that. Everything, he understands the collector mindset. I definitely think it's an inherited trait to be a collector, right? You may not necessarily collect the same thing, but if you're a collector of anything, you can understand how we are as sports card collectors. And my dad certainly gets that frame of mind. He's always hunting for tools and hunting for unique things. And he has a sign in his shop. He has a big shop in my parents' backyard. And the sign says, "The best thing I make with these tools are friends."
Wow.
And that's so, like, he makes cool furniture. I mean, he's an amazing craftsman. I mean, absolutely brilliant. And he says, the best thing I make with these tools are friends, because he loves sharing that. And with other people and building stuff for other people. So now he and my son are getting into business. My son, who just graduated from college, they're going to start building beasts for other people.
Nice.
And
Huh.
so it's now going
Really?
multi-generational. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I may need a beast.
Yeah.
It's pretty awesome. I got to tell you.
No, yeah, that thing is nice. It actually looks like the in the library we're used to
Yep.
we're gonna show our age here.
Yeah, that was the
gist of it.
inspiration of it.
Nice.
And I thought, let's use that. I'm going to make it the perfect size, because you can find stuff that kind of mirrors that. You can find the old card catalogs, but they just don't.
Yeah.
It doesn't fits right. It's not perfect. It's always something left to be desired in that.
Yeah.
But this, we just built it. And it's all. We wanted to make it nice enough where it could be a piece of furniture in your house. I mean, it's all walnut, like super nice.
Yeah.
Like I wanted it to be a showpiece, not just like forget the cards inside of it. The piece of furniture itself is pretty great.
Yeah.
In and of itself. So anyway, sorry.
No, that's awesome. No, because it adds to it. Because I think sometimes when you have your cards, I mean, Oz can say like he just had his wife was telling him, he's like, yo, you have all this stuff around here. What the hell is going on? But if you have it in some type of thing like that, where it's like a nice piece of furniture, and on top of that, I got a cool collection of things either on it or inside of it. That to me, that's awesome, man.
Yeah, when y'all come to the Dallas show next, have y'all been to the Dallas show?
No, that is so I was like, so we year by year we're kind of hitting boom boom boom. I'm like 2024 we have to go to the Dallas show. Like we just can't not, like that's enough. Like I've heard enough stories about how great it is and all that stuff. I'm like, yeah, we got to get there.
Well, consider this an invitation when you're here to carve out some time, come over to Fort Worth and hang with me and get a tour of the card room.
Love it. Yeah. Absolutely. So Oz makes fun of me about being just totally off the topic list here.
Yeah.
Right. He makes fun of me about being a PSA fanboy.
Here we go.
I'm with you, Tony.
Can you explain to this?
Listen, I'm not. It's not that I'm not a fan of PSA.
No. You make fun of me because
what I'm saying is you don't like anything else. It just, if you have anything else, whether it's Beckett or SGC, it's just like immediately you have to crack it and get it into a PSA slab regardless. So it's just, that's why I call you a fanboy. Right. Like I'm okay with getting a Beckett slab. But
Mike, tell him why I'm right.
All right. So autographs, I'm very slabnostic is a word I like to use. Like agnostic on my slab choice. On my regular cards, it's hard not to have a PSA slab. It's hard not to see that red. I'm pretty OCD, so I want consistency within my collection, both the way they look, the sizes. You got all these different, I call them Frankenstein collections. If you have like all these parts of parts and all these different slabs in your collection, there's literally nothing wrong with that. It's just not for me.
Yeah.
If I had to start all over, I would have gone SGC right now. If I was starting over today, SGC is by far the most consistent grading, the fastest returns, the best customer service, and I know Peter, so that's also good. But the point is, they really do a good job, and I would start over with them. I'm, 13 years into being PSA guy, and I love the registry. I really do. It is a tool and a advantage that they have that I think is lost on a lot of people. They don't get it until they get it, until they're in it.
Mike,
and
quick about that. Like describe that to the audience. Cause like you said, there's a lot of people that don't get it. Everybody's heard about it, but what is the PSA registry? And how cool is it, man?
In the simplest way, it's the world's greatest inventory. Okay. You can put all of your slabs in there. You can put scans. Now, if you get them slabbed today, they're going to put scans in there for you. High res scans. It's great. I have scans of every card. I can build unique and different sets through their registry. They have pretty much every set you could possibly, 1963 home run leaders, or, pick your anything. There's probably a set for it, a team set of this or that. And I love that you can pseudo compete against other collectors, or at least see where your collection stacks up. Not that there's any, there's nothing at the end of the rainbow if you're number one, but it's kind of just personal pride. And, we all want to be proud of our collections. Dr. Beckett told me one time, he's like, Mike, just build a great collection. Like, don't worry about impressing anybody or anything. Just build a great collection for you. And I've always taken that to heart because it's very wise and true. And it's a marathon, not a sprint, too. That's another thing. Everybody wants to have a great collection today. And people look at me, man, dude, it took me 40 years to build this collection. It's not like I did it overnight and I won the lottery or something. And so the registry just allows you pseudo competition, a great inventory tool. Their app is great. You can be at a show. Do I have this card? You can search your inventory very quickly and know if you have it or don't have it. Again, it's not perfect, but if SGC had that, or what I really think, if somebody had the money, and this, anybody can run with this idea. I haven't copyrighted this, but if there was a universal set registry where you could put any slab into a set registry type of system, I think that would be a money-making machine, because most people do have a Frankenstein collection, and they're not all so ingrained. And I'm so deep into it. I mean, I have almost 4,000 PSA slabs. So that would be a lot to start over.
Yeah.
Or, I'm just going to start doing SGC. It's not that simple for me. And I do like everything looking the same. I like pulling my cards out and doing tabletops and showing different parts, and they look really good when they're all in the same slab. If I had all these mismatched things, it would just bother my own way of thinking, you know?
Now, do you think PSA took over the grading, even like surpassed, BGS Beckett because of the registry? Do you think that was like the main thing, or was it just
It
quality?
certainly didn't hurt. I think that what hurt Beckett, I think their slab is the ugliest slab. And there's something to aesthetics. And I mean that genuinely. Their slab is bulky.
I love this. This
guy.
guy's a genius, man. The only thing all we gotta do is get you with a green hat, and we're freaking good to go, brother.
But Beckett was always known for grading modern cards, right? And they were, for a long time, you sent your, golden era stuff, 50s and 60s, 70s cards to PSA. You sent your pre-war to SGC, and you sent your, stuff you pull out of a pack, your Bowmans and your rookies and stuff, all to Beckett. That was the way it was for dang near a decade. It was like that for a long time in the grading ethos. That was the way it broke down. Well, PSA started undercutting Beckett price-wise. New people that came into the hobby liked the way the PSA slab looked better, and I think the price differences started in PSA doesn't have a 9.5, right? That's their, if you were to change anything about PSA right now, if I could change one thing, they need to add a 9.5 because that would help them even more in the modern market. You're not going to have a 9.5 on a 52 tops card, but you will on a 2023 card, right? So, but I grading is this weird thing. I used to hate it for the longest time. I thought it was a scam. I thought it was a joke. And then I started buying higher end cards, doing some different projects. And I was like, okay, again, as long as I've been doing this, I still don't know that I can't be duped on a higher end card of it being fake. And so, not that they can't either. They're not perfect, but at least it's two set of eyes looking at a card now instead of just one, or somebody that can really, magnify, super magnify, look at all the things that they have, all these ways to tell if a card's fake. And that brought me some peace of mind, honestly, to that. And Beckett really didn't embrace the grading of vintage. They started BVG at some point, but that was always looked at as, it's a legit grade, honestly. Like I'm not saying their grading's bad. It's just people didn't like, now you're doing something different. I don't know. People don't like change in general. And so, well, let's just start doing PSA. And then SGC has come on really taking a lot. Look, let's not kid ourselves. PSA is the 600-pound gorilla in the room. Like, they grade more cards than everybody else combined every week. And they can. Nobody else, SGC is grading as many cards as they can. They're at full capacity. So they'll never catch up because they can't scale up that fast, and people probably wouldn't send the cards. So I don't know if I'm answering your question or not.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
you know, I'm a PSA guy.
Yeah.
And I'm
It's
so
just it's just funny how that all fell into place into now it's just like PSA is just dominating no matter
yeah.
what. And there's little niches of people with Beckett and SGC, but it's just like by far PSA is the king when it comes to grading.
But if you don't care, I mean, if you're starting now, I'm telling you, SGC is the best company right now. I like CSG slabs too. I really do. They're pretty slick. The acrylic is
Yeah.
gorgeous. The slabs are nice. So I don't have a problem with that. Again, it's just I'm not
Starting
gonna
out.
start a Frankenstein collection. I don't want to do that. That's the great thing. I don't have to, right? Okay. You can make fun of me. I don't care. It's not your card, it's my card. So I'm gonna buy what I want.
Yeah. Like that. Fanboys. Hello.
Sorry, Oz. I'm not trying to, I'm not trying to take Tony's side on purpose. That's
Yeah, I
genuinely
don't
how
know.
I
I
feel.
feel kind of like I'm being ganged up on, but I'll let it slide.
Yeah.
Tony, do you
I
need my
like the
PayPal
mics.
information so that you
Yeah,
can?
we'll slide that. We'll
All
do
right.
that off
All
the
right.
air.
Yeah. Thanks, man.
Yeah, man. Yeah. One thing that you did talk about. So all these things, we have all these cards, we have all these collectibles that I found that was pretty cool that you don't see a lot of people talking about, man. It was insurance and protection and stuff. So just talk a little bit about what you learned when you kind of put that stuff out there, because I I don't have that stuff on mine. So I'm like, oh wow, I probably should figure something out and how to go about all that stuff.
Well, the biggest misconception I think that most people have, a myth out there, is that your homeowner's coverage covers your collectibles, and that's just simply not true. Um, it's 100% not true. You have to get a special rider on your homeowners to do that, and not always. This isn't universal, but a lot of the times you're gonna have to do a detailed inventory. You're gonna have to update it all the time. And the reality is, for most of us, not me necessarily, but a lot of people, their collections are ever evolving, right? They're
Mhm.
fluid. They're adding cards, getting rid of cards, and trading, whatever. So to keep that up to date is a pain in the butt, right? So there's a company called Collectibles Insurance Services that I found many years ago, and they do collectibles. That's all they do. They insure collections, whether it's firearms or stamps or coins or comic books or sports cards, art, whatever. They insure that, and it's a separate and different policy. It's for your collection, and you don't have to inventory anything. You just tell them, here's how much coverage I want. You have to line item. The only line items you have to do is any individual item that's worth more than $25,000. And for most of us, most of us have very few of those, if any. So it's not really an issue for your average collector. And so, yeah, I literally have one line item on my thing. Everything else is under 25 grand. So no big deal. And it covers everything: fire, theft, natural disaster, whatever. It covers your cards when you're shipping them. It covers your cards when you're at a show, if you were setting up at a show. And so it just gave me a lot of peace of mind, and my wife a lot of peace of mind, that if something happened, uh, we would at least, and I don't think someone has to necessarily cover the full value of their collection. I think you need to cover, how much pain are you willing to feel, right? Whatever that is.
Right.
Uh, if it would devastate you and if you had 1,000, let's just say, I'm going to use real simple numbers. If your collection's worth 10 grand and you only have $1,000 worth of coverage, you're probably not going to be happy losing 9 grand. But if you have $10,000 worth of cards and you get $8,000 worth of coverage, and you're not paying that extra premium for full coverage, then how much pain can you live with? Each person's got to answer that question for themselves. But yeah, I just think it's important, and I think you can do that. Again, if you don't want to, if you have a $10,000 collection and you're okay, if it burns up in a fire or what, pick your problem. Are you going to be devastated? Is it going to change your life? If not, don't insure it. But if it does, if it will make you upset, that's what insurance is for. And it's pretty inexpensive, the lower dollar amounts, but it's worth at least investigating.
Yeah.
If you're not sure, go look, see if it makes sense for you, if you can afford it. But I'd rather pay my premium than pay to rebuild my collection. That is a no-brainer for me, The reality is, I'd probably take the money and be done with the hobby if that ever happened.
Yeah.
I wouldn't.
If you
I
lost
don't know
all
that-
that, it's like,
Yeah, it'd be tough to, or then that's when you could start with the SGC.
There you go. Ooh,
So there you go.
now
Look
you're
at that. See?
talking.
Look at that.
Tony, I
See?
like the way you think, man.
Yeah, man. I'm the brains of this operation over here,
you
man.
go.
This guy, yeah.
This-
Well, Oz is the good-looking one, so that's
Oz is the eye candy, and I. So, but no, yeah, that's awesome, man. Like I said, that's a conversation that's not had too often. It's like I've only ever heard people barely touch on that stuff, but totally makes sense, man. I'm like, yeah, I think I'd cry more if I lost my cards than I don't know if the garage,
right.
roof fell in. I was like, whatever. I'll just
Think about it,
figure that out.
We
But-
put a lot of money into this and time, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
You want it just to be gone? Like nobody
Yeah.
really. If you asked them, like, be real with me. Oh, I wouldn't care.
Yeah,
full of
yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah.
Then you
It's the
don't care about the
time. It's
hobby.
the time. It's a lot of. It's
Yeah.
actually it's the time. It's more so that the dollars are dollars, obviously. But think about, I don't know how long it took you to go. How many shows did you go to before you found the right copy of the card that you've been searching for? It's a lot different than, like I said, putting the you call it. Well, actually, you can call Dad and put the new roof on. But
Right.
but yeah, just example. But yeah, the time
Sure.
is you can't get that back.
No.
Exactly. So now, once we make that trip down to Texas and we go check out the crib, and I go look at your collection, what am I gonna find, Mike? What's your PC?
So I'm a Hall of Fame guy. I'm a recovering player collector. I like to say I'm a recovering player collector addict. I used to collect individual players. I started with Darryl Strawberry back in the 80s. I'm a Texan that loved Darryl Strawberry, which is kind of because he played for the Mets, right? And
Mhm.
but he had such a sweet swing, and 83 Rookie of the Year. The dude was just amazing. And I was like, I'm going to collect Darryl Strawberry cards. You go buy a bunch of those, and then you kind of
Wait, real quick, Mike.
Yeah.
Which is his rookie card? What year? 83 or 84?
83 tops traded. It's his rookie card.
Ooh, okay. Very good. See, that debate rages on.
84s are not rookie cards for him. He has an 83 tops traded. So
Love it. That is amazing. Go ahead.
then and Dwight Gooden's is 84 tops traded and 84 Fleer update. So same with Clemens, Puckett, all those guys in the 80s. If they had a traded card, even though it wasn't pack distributed, I get it. I get why people, but they were readily available. It wasn't like it was hard to get them. And so Ripken's rookie card is actually his 82 tops base card, the 3-person, not the 82 tops traded, because that card came out first. Okay, sorry. We could just talk about that for a whole lot.
Oh, trust me. Yeah. We were talking to Victor last week about some of that. So he kind of planted the seed. But anyways, go ahead. Back to your
No,
see
well,
that's a whole other.
Oh, what do I collect?
Yeah.
So I went, Darryl Strawberry to Juan Gonzalez. I had 5,000 different Juan Gonzalez cards. And, then I kind of gravitated towards Rangers, Michael Young, Pudge Rodriguez. And then Josh Hamilton had the home run derby 2008 Yankee Stadium. The dude goes off, right? And I'm like, he plays for my team. And this dude hits like no one I've ever seen. I mean, I watched Hamilton every day. He was a talent. I mean, he had talent, more talent in his pinky toe than most every other baseball player.
Yeah.
I remember even guys, Reggie Jackson would say, I've only heard the way the bat sounds a couple of times. Buck O'Neill would talk about it. Like I've heard it with Bo Jackson and Babe Ruth and Josh Hamilton. Just he hit the ball crazy. So that night I became a Josh Hamilton super collector, and I started buying everything I could get my hands on, and I built a massive Josh Hamilton collector. And then he gets traded to the Angels. His career kind of falls off. I'm like, why am I doing this? And I've always dabbled in vintage. Vintage was always that stuff you'd go to the shop, when you were a kid, or go to a show, and you'd always want it, but you could never afford it. You're like, dude, these cards are awesome. I just, I'm not dropping that kind of coin on these cards. I'm going to go buy a Jose Canseco rookie or something. And that was my childhood. Those 80s, mid 80s, Mattingly, Canseco, Clemens. So it's like, all right, I'm just going to buy Hall of Fame stuff. I had a lot more discretionary income. I could put more into cards. I realized this Hamilton stuff is basically like, now I still have it, but has no terminal value really. And although value isn't a driver, it should be on all of our minds. It's not that we don't think about it. It's not that it's unimportant. It just doesn't need to be the most important thing for me anyway. It's the I care, but I really don't care, kind of thing. You can walk that line. People say, well, you either care or you don't. Both. I both care. I both care and I don't care. So I'm looking at this Hamilton stuff, and that literally tens of thousands of dollars I put into Hamilton, and now it's pennies on the dollar, if that. If anybody would even buy it from me, if I wanted to sell it. And I went, okay, Hall of Famers. Now I'm going for stuff that kind of no matter what, it's the slow burn. It's not going to do a whole lot. I love these players, and I love learning about them. And so, and I had a bunch of autographs that my dad had gotten me over the years through his job, through his camera work and stuff. And it's just like, okay, I went to a Rangers fan fest, like Phillies fan fest, or Phillies fest, or whatever they have. That every team kind of has one. And Fergie Jenkins was there, pitcher for used to be a pitcher for the Cubs, Rangers, several teams. Well, he was there signing autographs for $20. Whatever you want. I'm like, $20? That seems awesome. Like, sure. And I went home that day. I got out all my Hall of Fame autographs that I had. And I'm like, okay, I got some cool stuff, a good starter. I'm going to see how many other Hall of Famer autographs I can get for $20 or less. And then it kind of exhausted that, and then went, okay, I need more. Here's my checklist now. I'm going to start going after the big boys. And, you go and you get some Hall of Fame autographs, and you get guys like this guy. Ever heard of him?
Oh, yeah. Cy Young. Wow.
Yeah, he's got an award named after him. It's pretty cool.
Nice.
Then you get guys like Jackie Robinson.
Ooh, wow. And now you're showing up there. It's like is that on the postcards or?
It is. It's government. Okay. It's a postcard dated. Gosh, my eyes are so. It's from Brooklyn, New York, August 20th, 1955. So this is a playing days auto. He was still playing in 55. That was the year actually the Dodgers won the World Series. So that was end of summer, the year the Dodgers won the World Series, that he signed that. And then I don't know. This guy's pretty good.
Babe Ruth.
Baby Ruth.
Baby Ruth.
I heard of him.
You see the grade on that auto?
Gem Mint 10 auto. Wow. Babe Ruth. Sheesh.
So I started picking that stuff up back before it was cool, kind of picking that stuff up. So now it's all Hall of Famers. And then I started a project. Started buying some vintage stuff and doing 300 Great Cards by Mike Payne. It's a book. It's actually right behind me right there. I thought these are great cards. I mean, there's some in there that are head scratchers of why these are in here, but it's got, Mantles and Mays and Clemente rookies and all these great. I'm like, I would love to own all those cards. What a great place to start going down vintage. This was, 12, 13 years ago, 14 years ago. And started buying them. And then I started buying the older stuff. That's when I got into grading. And I found out PSA had a set registry for it. I'm like, holy crap, I can track my checklist right there and all this cool stuff. I'm like, this is fantastic. And then, so it's like, okay, now what? I started getting some of those, and I'm like, well, I like this Roy Campanella, and I like this card. And I started buying other stuff, and I'm like, why not just get the whole Hall of Fame run for this year or that year? 1960 was my first year. Then I did 73 because that was the year I was born. And then, and it grew into, hey, I'm going to do every Hall of Fame card or every Topps and Bowman card that pictures a Hall of Famer from 1950 to 1989.
Wow.
2,400 and something cards, almost 2,500. And believe it or not, I'm at like 85%. I only need like 300 and something now. Nice. Every Hall of Famer from Mantle, Mays, you name it. And if they're pictured on a card, I want it. And the leaders cards, the even the managers. And so I've kind of gone, that's kind of like a lifetime project. And I'm like, hey, the last card I'm going to get for that is the 52 Topps Mantle. That'll be the last card I get, because it'll be the most expensive one, no doubt. But that's
then the last one on everybody's list.
you start getting into these cool, awesome cards. I mean, you don't mind if I show cards, do you?
No,
go ahead.
No.
I mean, I know the podcast listeners can't see these.
Yeah, but that's it.
So there's your boy.
Yeah,
Clemente rookie card.
Very nice center. How long did it take you to find that That one.
Not long. Actually, another guy in the community was selling it, and I
Okay.
actually picked it up from him at the National 3 years ago, 4
Okay.
years ago.
Nice.
But then there's cards like this was a card I bought off a collection. Uh, I bought it raw,
Wow.
and little 50 Bowman Jackie Robinson.
Sweet.
But this was like a card that had been in a guy's basement for 30 years, 40 years.
Now, Mike, when you're picking up these vintage cards,
Yeah.
what's number one priority when you're looking at that card? What's the first thing colors, registration, centering?
Registration is number one for me. If the
Really?
picture doesn't work, what's the point? That's the whole point of the card. It's the picture of the player. So registration, people ask me this, what do you mean by registration? It's the clarity of the picture, the
Mhm.
clarity of the photograph and or artwork, because you got cards that are really basically just paintings, right? There's
Yeah.
a 33 Gaudy Gehrig. This was the first high-end vintage card I ever bought. Lou Gehrig's my favorite player of all time. He has an amazing story that always inspired me, and always I just admired him for his life. Never saw him play, but you read and you learn,
Yeah.
and you're like, dude, think about it. The two of the probably 5 greatest players of all time played on the same lineup and batted back to back.
Yeah, that's crazy.
It's pretty nuts. So registration matters to me, Tony, more than because think if a card's off center, especially a vintage card, guess what? It came out of the pack like that. It wasn't like somebody did that versus a crease creases bother me, especially through the face or through the main part of the picture. But off centering, I can almost live with a little bit. Who doesn't want perfectly centered cards? We all do, right? I mean, give me a break. But the reality is, I'll give up centering to have clarity, and I like rounded corners. That just shows that the card's old. I don't see anything. That's the great thing about vintage is eye appeal matters in vintage more than any other. Doesn't matter really in modern, ultra modern. But in vintage, you get a 4. God, you could put 10 4s next to each other, and they're all going to have different eye appeal, right? And they're all going to have things that, what, Tony, you're going to like, number 3, and odds you might like number 5, and I might like number 7. Okay, they're all the same numerical grade. It's what do you like? And for me, if the picture isn't right, if it's blurry, or there's print dots all over it, that's part of registration, right? Or print defects on the card. It distracts me from the card itself. The corners can be sharp as like Kutchik sharp, and I don't care if the picture's all blurry. And I've passed on plenty of cards just for that reason. And again, that's another great thing about vintage. Who cares what you may, man, I got to have a centered card. Okay, that's fine. I got a couple more. You want to see them?
Sure, absolutely. While you're looking for that one, like what you just described with that's Willie Mays 51 Bowman. That thing is sweet. And now I see that you are a big time registration guy, because these cards you're all flashing up, and you guys will see this on the YouTube. They're all very clear, and like, I mean, even like looking at it through the the camera, the computer, like, that's wild. Yeah,
I'll take that all day.
Yeah.
And I don't have to pay the craziness. This one's pretty crazy. Hold on, I got it. Too many cards lying around.
Yeah, for sure. But what, like I said, what you're describing there, from like the Josh Hamilton to then saying, all right, like, remember when you first said, if I don't love the sport, then I can't, I have to love the sport to get into the cars. So like, yeah, you're big, which by the way, Hamilton, a crazy story with Hamilton, man. If you guys don't know who Josh Hamilton is, look him up. Dude was a beast. But like you said, you had the love for baseball. Then as you evolve in the hobby, you're like, all right, now I'm going to kind of graduate into Hall of Famers, where that kind of, like, it's where we always talk about the evolution of a collector, man. So, I mean, you're pretty much living it, man.
I talk about evolution of a collector all the time. We all start collecting stuff we know, the players we can watch, right? That's why I collected the stuff I collected in the 80s. And then we all evolve and go, man, that's all great. And it's not that you don't love them anymore. It's not that at all. It's just, hey, I'm going to take my collecting to the next level. And that's where vintage starts coming in, because none of us saw Ruth play. None of us saw Cobb play. That wasn't around. But it's guy was pretty good.
There's and there you're
Yeah.
flashing up the 51 Bowman Mickey Mantle. That is very nice registration. Even the centering is good. Wow, that's a
Nice.
banger.
Well, it's a PSA 5. So
Yeah.
this is the only card that I have individually listed on my insurance policy.
That is
There you go.
banger. Well, I know a certain therapist that would love to have that bad boy right there.
I know a certain mailman that would love to have that card.
That is awesome. Dude, that's a killer, man.
And
So
that's the Mantle rookie. Don't let anybody tell you 52 tops. That's just not true.
thank you, dude. Look, man, Mike. I'm telling you, man. All you need is an Eagles. Oh, we're here, man. We are here.
Simpatico.
Heck yeah, man. This is like
You
Mike.
didn't know. You didn't know when Oz was like, "Dude, we got to have Mike on the show," and you're like, I don't know this guy.
Yeah. Nah, I was just like, man, we don't need this. I was just like, this is a bunch of crap, man. But
that's
Mike,
what I collect, Oz, to answer
that's
your question
awesome.
from a while back. It's
Love it.
That's awesome. So Mike, coming down the home stretch here, man, this is one of those where I said this was a fast hour, but 2 more and then we'll let you go.
Sure.
So we're gonna crown you king of the hobby.
No,
What direction are you taking the hobby in?
I revoke my skin. Oh gosh, what direction am I taking the hobby?
Whatever, anything, you know what I mean? Like what's King Mike gonna eliminate, or whatever, or maybe make some crazy improvements, changes, and anything that they think other than telling Oz that I'm not crazy about the PSA.
Well, that would be my first edict as king.
PSA.
But the reality is, I don't like how fast through the pandemic. I think it's unhealthy, the money aspect of the hobby. It rose too far too fast, came back down, and I think what that does is it puts a sour taste in some people's mouths. If you entered the hobby in 2020 and you got into it and you loved it, and now your stuff's worth half what it was, again, that's not universally true, but it's plenty of cards that are down more than that and plenty that aren't down that much. But the reality is the hobby took a hit. People left the hobby. If it wasn't, I'd buy every card I have for $1. I don't care. I want the card. The fact that they're worth money is just okay, great, but it's but I don't know how you change that mindset. Even as king, I don't think I could, I guess I could price fix every card at, some dollar amount. Like no cards can sell for more than X dollars, right?
Yeah.
And then it would, but see, you need all of the ecosystem of the hobby, all needs each other. And I think we lose sight of how integrated all the parts of the hobby are. We need breakers to open products, so those of us that want to buy singles can buy singles. We need dealers that want to sell cards, so I can. Otherwise, who am I going to buy them from? We need card shop owners to have places to go and thumb through dollar boxes and shows and all of these parts of the hobby ecosystem. We need technology to help us track our collections and everything. All of these work together to create what we call the hobby experience. And I don't know how you make those work together better. Honestly, everybody wants their piece of the pie, and just greed's a bitch, and it's a shame, but I don't think I can change human nature even as king. So
Yeah.
I don't know that I'm getting my wish there, but
Yeah, I hear you.
what are you gonna do?
Whenever money's involved, unfortunately, human beings tend to screw that up.
We
Heck
do.
yeah.
We're really good at it.
Yeah.
We're really good at it. And that's everything in life. Oh, and sports cards too, right?
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
why should we be surprised at all with
for
that?
sure. So Mike, before Oz gets to the last question, let everybody know where they can find you and your content at.
Everywhere.
Yeah.
Mainly YouTube, Baseball Collector. If you just want to see me talk about cards and just my collection and stuff, Baseball Collector. I started my YouTube channel so long ago that wasn't taken yet. It seemed so obvious to me, like, hey, I collect baseball stuff.
Yeah, I seen that. I was like, how did he get that?
Yeah. Hey, I collect. I'm just going to call myself baseball collector because I don't just collect cards. I collect autographs, and when you come to the room, when you guys get here, you'll see stuff that's pretty awesome. That's not just cards. And then so that's one place. Bench Clear Media. You can listen to the podcast or watch the podcast on YouTube. You can listen to the Golden Age of Cardboard podcast on any podcast wherever you get your podcast, just like you're listening to Cousin Collectibles right now. And I'm on Instagram. If you want to send me a message, ask me any question you want. I'm happy. I try to really stay up on that, and I get a lot. So but that's kind of what I want to give back. If people want to ask a question, I want to answer that. And it's at Baseball Collector Mike is my Instagram handle. So
Awesome.
All right, Mike. So we're going to end this like we always do. And that's basically just getting advice from you. What would you offer somebody that's new or somebody that's been here a while, some tips or tricks of the trade? You have a ton of knowledge. So what would you say to somebody new coming in, or like I said, somebody that's been in the pod game for a while to be successful?
In the pod game or the collecting game? Those are two different things.
Okay, well, let's just keep it. Let's say a new collector.
If you're a new collector, be patient. Be patient. You don't have to build a great collection today. You need to build a great collection over time and learn. Buy what you love, because if you don't love it, you're just going to be mad. 6 months down the road, 3 months down the road, you're going to look at, why did I buy this? Have a purpose, have a thought. I love this player. I love this team. I love, buy that. Make that be your focus at first. And then as you go along, you'll evolve, like we've talked about, as a collector, and you'll learn, oh man, I didn't even know about this set. That's so cool. I love those. Like I've even recently, the old Kellogg sets, the 3D, they're butt ugly, but I love them. And so I've been buying Kellogg sets, and putting them in binders. And, even an old man like me can learn, or not learn, but learn to appreciate and go, man, I would like that to be part of my collection. So be patient, take your time. I'd say pick off low-hanging fruit. To go out and spend $1,000 on a card is, for most of us, a good chunk of money. Why not buy some $10 cards, $20 cards, $50 cards? You don't have to just dive headfirst into the pool. You can dip your foot in and buy things you like, and that'll help you without having a high cost of entry. Learn what you like, right? Just don't be in a hurry.
Love it. Learn what you like. Learn what you love. I appreciate that. And like you said, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. You've been doing this a long time. Like you said, 40 years. So a lot of times people come in brand new, they're wide-eyed, and they see these collections. They get on Instagram and it's like, holy crap. And they feel like they, got to keep up with the Joneses, and they'll go maxing out credit cards or pulling from here, pulling from there, and it just gets out of hand. Like you say, you buy the wrong thing and now they had a bad experience, and cards are whack, cards suck. That that's a whole scam. So just take your time and learn what you like. I like that. I appreciate that, man. But Mike, man, thank you for coming on board and blessing us with this knowledge. Like I said, we met last Wednesday. It feels like we've been talking forever, and that's what cards does, and that's what the hobby, what makes it so special, is the relationships that you build. The cards, that's the gravy part, but like getting these relationships with these people that you can have, on top of that's the beautiful part of the hobby. But like I said, thank you so much for sharing, and we're definitely gonna make a trip down very soon to Texas. We might even check out Dallas Stadium again. I went there one time. I spit on the middle, went right to the middle of the field there, took a picture, photo op, and then I spit on the star there. Just so you know.
They called me. I had to come wipe it up.
Appreciate
you, Mike. Tony, any last words?
Just again, man, I echo Oz's sentiments, man. Thanks for joining us. This is fun. Like I said, this could easily win another 2 hours. It's like, as you're talking, like a bunch of stuff is popping in my head, but we'll save that for another day, man.
I'll come on again. You guys can have me on again. I'll do a part 2. No
Appreciate
problem.
That. Like that. Right, go ahead. I'll take us home.
So, Tony, Mike, we're going to end this like we always do, and that's keep focused, keep positive, and keep collecting. Hey, yo, Tone, bring the beat back.